think I'm asking my computer to do too many things and it thinks I'm mean. Do you have presenter notes? Okay.
I've just practiced it. I'm not blind. I don't understand. All right, so obviously I'm Tyler. And I did my project over Lake Placid. I just really, that was the one chapter, chapter two, that really just stood out to me. Made me think the most. It made me reflect the most on our field. And really, when I try and think about the history and where we really began, I think it really does start there, up in New York. So, what happened and where we are now because of it? Oh, okay. So first, just a little bit of background. Lake Placid is located up in the mountains in northern New York. It is the birthplace of the American Home Economic Association, founded by Ellen Richards, of course, in 1909. It was later renamed to the American Association of Family Consumer Science, but I'll dive more into that later. And then one thing that I really took from that chapter, and also just more research around the entire conference, was that Annie Dewey really did have a bigger part than even what the book even relates and what other resources tend to say. Without her, I really don't think the conference would have gone any much further, because of the passion and the drive that she had to actually make it happen. Because she kind of had the same type of fire that a lot of other women in the field had at that time, to want to move forward, but exactly like, where do you begin? Where do you start? Who do you talk to? So a little bit of background on her. She was a private resort owner. So at the time, really, there was so many things telling her why she could stay in her certain spot, and not pursue this and be totally fine with her career and her future. But she knew she wanted to do more than that. And not that Ellen Richards wasn't as enthusiastic. Just the summer going into that first conference, the idea of going to that wasn't really in her, it wasn't really in the books for her. She had a lot of work she wanted to do in Boston over that summer, a lot of things to continue her work in her own career. So, of course, what happened? So, the conference is held in New York, was obviously a crucial part of figuring out what home economics actually was, what it was seen as in the country, and where it was going to further on to. So it set a standard for future professionals, students just like us, and young adults that are still within high school classes, middle school classes, that are learning things today based on the work that they had done with their goal in mind for the future. The association gave voice to women all over the country who wanted to be more, and of course, they all deserved more than what they were getting in this field. So the first conference, I have a list of the names of the 10 women and 1 man that went. I do not want to butcher their names. I've said them multiple times, and even myself, I've said, that's wrong. Don't say that out loud. It's disrespectful. I will mention at the end there were 2 women that went by took their husbands' names when they wrote their names down. Miss William G. Shalier. Again, sorry, Miss William.
I know.
And then Miss William B. Kellen. So when they went to this conference, they were told, or maybe not told, but they were going under their husband's name, instead of their own, which I found very interesting, and couldn't even imagine that happening today, nor would I want to see that happening today. So the goal of the first conference, obviously, to move us forward, to get us to where we are now. I really don't think I do think the vision of where they wanted to go does look like this: us sitting in a classroom strictly dedicated to family consumer science, or at the time, home economics. So all the professionals there kind of had the same overriding goal. They wanted to move forward in this career, and they wanted to make home economics a standard within the country, which I'm very happy it is, because none of us would be sitting in here if it wasn't. So this led them to the journey to discovering themselves as a group and labeling their group, because at the time there wasn't really a label. There was just the common goal and passion of all of these women for the same field, but they needed to label themselves because just as we've seen in anything else in history, you need to have a face, you need to have a label, you need to have an actual goal, a driving goal to make anything happen. So within the next 5 days of that first conference, they redefined the word of domestic science, which that's what they was really labeling our field as to them, to everybody else in the field and the professionals around them. I took a quote out from the book. It was a journal entry from Anna Barrows, which said, "Perfect harmony prevailed throughout," which I found because I mean, most of them at this time doing journal entries every single day. I don't personally do that. I don't know if you guys do that. But that's kind of how you can kind of see their feelings and their thoughts on the actual conference. And I thought that was really strong that she felt that way just to write that one sentence to kind of clarify her thoughts on the entire conference, or at least within those first 5 days. As our history continues, Ellen really left the conference feeling much more empowered. Not that she wasn't before, but that empowerment really did grow because of the events that took place. And her excitement for the future as well grew. In a letter she wrote to Annie Dewey, she said, "Every day convinces me that you were right and I was unbeliever. I am more and more convinced of the epic making possibilities of the Lake Placid work." Now, is anybody like so? She says epic right there. You see how it's EPOCH. Have you guys ever seen it spelled that way, or am I just crazy?
No, I wonder if it means different when it's spelled.
Well, I looked it up and it means the exact same thing. Like it's a considering a explain an event, or like it's kind of like a different spin on the word, meaning basically the same thing.
I think epic EPIC is an adjective, and an epic EPOCH is a thing.
Oh,
Or it was.
I absolutely love the way all the women at this conference wrote. I mean, from their journal entries, other research that they said, and journal entries and statements that they had, the speeches they gave after it, incredible. But that right there, I've been so worried about saying that, and I finally popped it in the Google Translate, and it was epic, and I was like, that's not right. But then I did some more research, and in fact, it was. Continuing, sorry for that brief moment of pause there. The work continued for the next 10 years, and it continued very strong. In these meetings, they discussed women in shop classes, which at the time was like, that's not happening. Labor relations, juvenile justice, and the need for living wage. Obviously, the main topic of all of these conferences was how do we get our field into universities, into high schools, available for young adults to learn. But these were some of the topics that they were discussing, because you can't just have that goal to get into those universities. You need to be able to say what you're going to bring to the table. Obviously, it's important to have that presence, but what are you going to bring to that university? As if we didn't know what they were already going to bring. Another quote, which was from Ellen Rich, that this is after the conference. She spoke at an all-male conference and said this: "You cannot make women contented with cooking and cleaning. You need to try. We are not quiet idiots, although we have been dumb because you did not understand our language. We demand a hearing and the help of wise leaders to reorder our lives to take advantage of the country." Incredible. Like I just said before, the speeches that and everything that I had found, this one really stood out to me. And for her to stand in front of this all-male conference and to say stuff like that continues it forward and really brings things into perspective. Because, and as we're going to find out in this presentation, her words do get heard. Leaders from around, help from around, different people from different areas of the country do step in because they understand. So the power in numbers. By the third conference, the number of attendees had grown to 50. Almost said 45. It's enough. And then by the eighth conference, they had around 145 members. Not everyone was attending these conferences based on different complications, but they were members and they were recognized by the other members. And then one thing that I noticed that and looked more research into was that there were rival groups forming, kind of with the same purpose, but not. They were kind of bashing on each other, calling them unusual meetings, And then they kept, but throughout all of that, they really kept striving. These conferences kept getting planned. And they really just kind of blocked them out and continued to grow, which, as any other great association does, don't worry about the people around you, worry about your mission. Oh, not moving forward. Okay. There we go. So as I was saying earlier, Ellen's words have been heard. The first large contributor was from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Nutrition Investigators Director, C.F. Langworthy. He joined the cause and backed the group, and he really did work tirelessly for this group. He connected home economics to the federal government, which was a huge boost for the program, getting that recognition. Some other key invites to the conference was a woman named Jane Addams, who was a well-known social worker, Fanny Farmer, cooking school director, and John Harvey Kellogg, cereal baron and health spa director. Kind of crazy. Those are like, different spectrum, two totally different careers. Put them together. Wow. Okay. All right. So this slide is where I'm going to kind of ask some questions, because thinking about the setbacks from Lake Placid, some ones that really stood out to me were not allowing the involvement of certain groups of people, African Americans in the Jewish community, which I was going to dive more into that, but you have to think about the time period. We don't live in a world like that right now, where you do something or exclude a certain group because you think it will get you further. At that time, I like to think that most people in the conference wanted those people in the group, especially if they were striving towards the same goal, because that's all that really mattered. But in the eyes of the country with that they were within, there's no progress in that. And regrettably so, but adding certain people to the group, African Americans or people from the Jewish community, they were already having a hard time getting their foot in the door to these universities, talk to people, and then adding people that are enemies, which is so rude to say, but that is how the outlook was on certain groups of people. Those doors wouldn't even be open. There's no chance to get your foot in the door if you're involving people that are against universities' policies, against people's beliefs, which is sad. But at the time, you kind of had to do what you need to do to further this group. But eventually, Melville Dewey did invite Booker T. Washington to his home in Lake Placid, where they discussed different policies, different things going on within the country. And then he also did talk a little bit about the conferences that were being held. And then right here, before I ask the question, I guess, this just blew my mind, honestly, made me actually really laugh. The president of Cornell told them that they would not pursue this program because there was no time for them. And in quote, educating men took time. So basically saying men are stupid, we need to take longer to teach them, and we don't have time to teach women because you might get it too fast and make the men mad. Is how I took it. But what were you gonna say, Laura?
No, that would be more the proper interpretation of it.
Yeah. So like basically saying all of our graduates need a lot of time to help them out to get to where they're going. Wow. So I guess just let me ask you this. What do you guys think about things that I've said about the setbacks? What do you guys think about where because of these events, do you think that the way they went about it was the best way to go about it, or they should have said, throw out the rules, let's do it our way, and it's going to work either way? Does anybody have a comment on that? I mean, it is a weird subject because you don't want to look about the setbacks, but I didn't want to give this presentation without talking about those setbacks because they are just as important. If we don't have any, okay.
Well, my first thought is like, would we still be in the same position we are now if we would have included them? Like if we would have like gone against the rules and included them, like
absolutely
be farther along, or
and that's what held me back as well.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of have the mindset of, well, with hard work and dedication, we can get to where we are now. Where would we be where we are right now, like you just said, in this same position at a university with university's ability to give PhDs? Would we even be there yet? Would we have this many people in class?
But you always have to like go through something to like make it
somewhere else.
Mhm.
Like, we had to go through this to make it for us to like come to a university and
Mhm.
have it like better.
Exactly, yeah. So as a setback then, or a bad view, or to us now, something that can be construed as negative, I guess we wouldn't be here without it.
Mhm.
So it's important to remember those things and kind of take and give light to those events. Because as I said, I do believe that I don't think everybody in that conference had the same opinion as the males or the political figures, professionals in the field. I really think they wanted to add everybody who had a passion for what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think maybe they didn't even think about it. So like, if later on we start merging, like, none of us really came today and thought like, hey, there are no high schoolers in this room, because that's not how our society is set up. I don't know. I don't think you can think of it as entirely okay or entirely not okay. It's,
That's why I wanted to ask that question
Yeah.
too, is because I have my views, but there's also, we're all pursuing the same dream with the same idea in mind. So our views on this subject could be different. But I guess the base of it is that we want to get to where we're going, and you gotta jump through hoops to get there. So personally, and I asked the question again where we would be without it, so we can kind of skip that part. Got kind of excited and wanted to ask that question. So what I personally learned from the events that took place at Lake Placid, through these meetings, through this entire book, we have a constant reminder that that from then to the present, there will always be people trying to bring us down. I mean, obviously, we are not a content area that is mandated and told to take to high school students in a way. And this is kind of, I mean, the more I think about it, it's true. I mean, you sit down with their advisor. All right, you have math, you have history, you have social studies, you have this, you have that. You need a couple more classes. Do you want to cook? Do you want to sew? Do you like child development? We're those classes. Yeah.
And in that, I feel like now a lot of advisors are also pushing like college credit instead too. Like at my high school, that would be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Saying, well, in the option of doing something that you can kind of passionate about and enjoy, learning life skills, or do you want to get ahead in college and make a little less? Exactly. That's so true. But at the end of it, our program is vital for the future of young adults, and I really do. I think there's no argument with that. I mean, there's
everyone has to not take as many classes next term, and you're just coming back to this one, and you're just being like, you're gonna start these discussions. Like, can you imagine if we'd had like the context of their discussion in like the second or third week of class? Like, I'm so proud of you guys building it, but like now I'm like, oh man, we just started doing these things. Screw it.
Oh, no, I'm happy my presentation is making so much conversation. I love it. So, as in my title, where are we now? We've kind of already discussed that. I don't need to go through this entire list because we've had a great conversation. I've already kind of elaborated on this, but as we've seen, our content areas continue to grow. I mean, when I first got to Iowa State, which was a while ago, I'm not going to tell you my age. You probably already know it's whatever. But and yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Yeah. But when I first got here, interior design, I had no idea that was even an option. That wasn't an option at my high schools. But I'm really happy it is, because it's a passion just like any other area. And I really do think that if you have a passion about a certain career or content area in life, or that you've noticed and found a passion about, you can bring that forward and probably get it to become an FCS content area. Honestly, if you have
things to take.
no, we don't, but I'm saying it's possible. And this field has grown to where you can get your PhD in FCS in some areas. I know Iowa State had it. The one I can only think of right now is Texas Tech. If you want to live out in the desert in Lubbock, I don't recommend it. But yeah, to be able to have that opportunity is incredible. And now and now with the association changing its name to the AAFCS, with thousands of members across the U.S. continuing the work of the women that started at Lake Placid. And I say women because that's really what started this program. That's what the majority is now, obviously, knowing that being one of the only males. But yeah, I just have a really large passion for this field. I've gone through college, I've done different things, and I've came back to this conclusion of being an FCS. I'm just very happy that I did that, because it's easy. It's hard. It's just, you know, it's easy to give these kind of presentations because you think about yourself, you think about what you want to do, and it just makes it a lot easier. These are my references and sources. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Night. So Michelle already talked to you guys about peer mentors.
Mm-mm.
I've never done peer mentors before, but if you guys want to be peer mentors for my next class of 206, let me know, because I would totally take people up on that.